I'm starting with a deep breath. Hi, everybody. I am very lucky to be here tonight with the very highly esteemed Mr. Steve Dale. Steve, for those of you who don't know him, we had the chance to talk earlier this week, and I rattled off all of your incredible credentials, but you are a certified animal behaviorist. You've been in the media for decades, not to reveal your young age, but reporting really veterinary quality information to the pet parent for decades. So well, in fact, that this year, the American Veterinary Medical Association is giving you the first ever esteemed media award for a non-veterinarian reporting on medical issues. And you're going to be receiving that in July, is that right?
I hope so, yes.
Well, they've already done the press release, so they can't take it back now. And you've really spent your career trying to get to the heart of the most important science in veterinary medicine, mostly for dogs and cats, and really a lot of cat stuff. And that's how we met. And then trying to translate that technical jargon into information that the average American can understand and find meaning in. In addition to all that, you spend a lot of your time working on animal charities, including serving on, I think, every board I've ever heard of in my life, including the Cat Friendly Practice Board for the AFP, the Fear-Free Advisory Board for Fear-Free Happy Homes, and you speak for Fear-Free all the time, explaining about fear, anxiety, and stress in animals and in people in the veterinary setting. You are on and a board member of the WIN Feline Foundation, which is the #1 grant giving organization in the world for feline research. Do I have that right?
Yeah, you do. In fact, we're the only organization that is cat only. And I've been on their board maybe 15 years or something.
And because of one of your personal cats,
Yeah.
What year was that, Steve?
2000 and something?
2000, early 2000. You lost a cat to FIP and had...
No, HCM, feline hypertrophy.
Oh, I'm sorry, HCM. So that's what got you into WIN, really. But
Yeah.
you spent a lot of time educating and raising funds for feline infectious peritonitis research.
Yes,
Everything else that the WIN Feline Foundation is doing, which is why we talked earlier this week, because the research that WIN has done with the funds that you helped them to generate is providing some very, very exciting science for maybe a human cure for the COVID-19 virus that we're all facing now.
Yeah, all true.
So One Health is something that is a sort of a tag phrase for scientists, but that means that we come together as scientists in veterinary medicine and human medicine and all of the other supporting sciences to try to use what we learn in each of our individual areas to help the other. And for COVID-19, this feline research is extraordinary and may end up being what saves human lives. And so you've had a long day.
Yeah, so I want to explain in part why we're here. And I love talking to you anytime, anywhere, anyhow, Dr. Bales. But I posted something earlier. So there was a report and I received several emails about it with links to stories about a cat testing positive for COVID-19. And very quickly, I've been very consistent about writing that cats get a feline coronavirus, dogs get a canine coronavirus. We've known that for decades and decades. We don't get their coronaviruses. We get coronaviruses before COVID-19 was ever heard of.
The common cold.
Right,
The common cold.
right.
And you and I had the chance earlier this week to co-write an article trying to break down what is a novel virus, what is the family of coronaviruses. You know, for me, I spent like my life trying to be educated, and this is sophisticated stuff that has, for me, has taken decades of schooling. And now we're trying to put the information together very quickly for people who are just concerned citizens who haven't had the benefit of those decades of education. In addition to the fact that this, and what we talked about in the article that we co-wrote, is that this is a novel virus. So, and we can link the article below, but what that means is no one has ever seen this virus before. And so the way science works is we collect as much data as we can over time about viruses, bacteria, disease processes, all that stuff. And to be able to predict how they're going to behave in the future, we look back on that science to be able to say, well, it usually does this, and it usually does that. There's lots of rules, and that's the thing with everything happening so fast, we're not even really able to stick to our rules because it's a novel virus and we need answers now. But the way under the normal circumstances science works is we collect this data over a long period of time. And even though we want those answers right away, we have to discipline ourselves to wait until we get enough information, a sample size that is adequate, and we do what we call double-blind studies. So there's a lot of technicality in the process of how we get and synthesize information to be able to come to reliable scientific conclusions.
Okay, and I think all that is important as a backdrop for what I'm about to say. So I received these, so thank you. So I received these emails saying that a cat has been identified with COVID-19. Now, I've already reported on 2 dogs that tested a, quote, weak positive is what they called it. And we'll talk about that in a moment, what that means or what scientists believe it means. But I went and I saw these reports, and some of them were really exploitive. And I don't know why, when it comes to cats, they get the second shrift, so to speak, and bloggers will be. Now, these were not necessarily credible newspaper reports or credible bloggers. I don't know that they were not credible, but they weren't folks that I knew. So then I went to folks I knew or links that I trusted, such as the government. So this was a cat that was in Belgium. So the Belgian government actually reported on this. And it was a veterinary school in Belgium that reported on this. So I kind of believe what the vet school says. Now, hang on a minute. And there's questions about how much I believe here. And I said so in the blog post. But people were still upset about it. And I want to get to all of your questions and comments. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this. I want to explain why I did what I did. So please, if you have questions or comments about the post, I want to hear from you, or questions or comments about just generally what we're talking about. So in any which case, then I went to the guru of all of this in veterinary medicine. His name is Dr. Scott Weiss. I have met him a couple times. I don't know him well. He's at the Ontario School of Veterinary Medicine. If Dr. Weiss says it, he doesn't just say it randomly or routinely. He's very careful about what he says, and he is the expert. So when H3N8, the dog flu, was going, like crazy, that was one of the sources everyone in veterinary medicine looked at as one example. So I went to Dr. Weiss, and sure enough, he had a post on his blog about it. And then I went to some other sources, and sources I know. And then based on what the government of Belgium said, and based on what their vet schools said, and based on what Dr. Weiss said, and others, then I crafted a blog post. I made some mistakes. One was some spelling and grammar mistakes, for which I apologize. I sincerely do. I'm not always my own best editor. Maybe I was upset when I was writing it. I mean, I didn't want to read what I read. but it's my job to inform all of you. And there's something, let me just finish here, Liz. There's something that Dr. Weiss has been saying, and others who know far more than I. They've been warning that SARS cats have been able to get previously. The SARS virus, when we first heard about SARS. And this is a SARS virus. So the experts were predicting that this would happen. And I said over and over in the story, things like what I'm about to say. We don't know, we don't know, we don't know. And I also indicated the way in which the cat was tested. They found the virus reportedly in the feces. Were the feces contaminated? I asked all those questions. And I also said, we don't know about the comorbidities of this cat, which means we don't know if the cat suffered other problems, other medical problems. And if they were looking at I said all of that in the post, which other post did not say. And I dare say, I'm not even sure Dr. Weiss said all of that or not. I don't know. I don't recall. But I did. I said all of that. And I also pointed to a story. It's not a story. It was a paper published in Virology, the journal, very recently, that indicated, and I could talk more in detail about this as my knowledge allows, and you probably know more about it than I do, about how this particular virus is not able to bind very, very well to dogs, but probably can to cats and ferrets, no surprise, other primates, non-human primates, as well as pigs, interestingly enough. And I said that because this is what a peer-reviewed published paper said. It's not my opinion. It's not something I approve of, something I don't approve of. I just put a link up there to the story and explained what I just said in my piece. And I was so surprised. I was out for a walk with our dog, actually, when a colleague contacted me and said, "You're being attacked." And I, again, so some things I did wrong. The headline very initially, didn't have a question mark after it about cats getting infected. And I apologize for that. And I put up a question mark very, very quickly. Maybe I'm sure some people saw it before that went up there. The spelling mistakes that I mentioned. I will say, and I don't want to go into detail on this, I contacted a friend of mine you'd think I'd have a hard skin being a public guy for so long. I don't, obviously. But I care so much about this. And a veterinarian with an organization, because, she read it and she said, oh, I would do this and I would do this. So I further tweaked it based on what she said. But they were minor sort of technical she was right, and I changed it. But minor technical changes. And I was happy to change it. Maybe I should have sent her the story first. But I am actually heartened by the fact that people care so much about cats and have emotions that are so strongly held. But my intent was to inform people of what we know, and to a greater degree what we don't know. But I'd rather have them hear from me than some of those sensationalized stories that were out there. But my story was being called on Facebook by lots of folks sensational, et cetera, et cetera. And I sincerely feel horrible about that.
Well, there's a really interesting comment, only one, from a woman named Roberta, who says, I talk too much. And
maybe I talk too much. It might have been
it was directed at me. Roberta can maybe chime in on that if it was directed to me or to you, but take too long to get to the point. And I'm actually so glad that she brought that up, because we're at a time when this information is complicated. And if you try to turn it into a bullet point, you miss a lot of stuff. So in our moment in time, we're a culture that likes to read headlines and top 3 best whatever lists.
Yeah.
But this is a complicated scientific moment where you're going to miss a lot of the details if you don't take the time to understand the science. And so if someone just read your headline and jumped to a conclusion and didn't even read your story with the science and the explaining, they can arrive at a very wrong conclusion or a misleading conclusion, because we have to slow down. And additionally, something I really want to say right now to our culture, all of us, animal lovers, people lovers, doctors, all of us, we have to approach each other with kindness. This is a stressful time that our culture has never seen anything like this. And we are trying to do the best we can, as fast as we can, to get people good information. And before you get angry or jump to a conclusion, we have to say, Steve Dale has always tried to give me good information. And I appreciate that Steve Dale also is not afraid to give me what information he knows and to take a stand. And I have always appreciated that about you. So I would wish that before people jump to a negative conclusion, they would take a step back and consider the source and the effort, and that we're all going through a very stressful time.
And I think one of the concerns, which I understand, is that on the internet everywhere, people are saying people are giving up their dogs and cats in crazy numbers. And I checked in numerous times in my city, but I've checked I know lots of shelter people, and I checked in other cities, including some of the most hard-hit towns. And they say no. The shelter directors are saying no, happily. People are not doing that. Now, I'm sure there are some individuals here and there, and that's unfortunate, that's wrong. People have written me, do I need to give up my animal? And I've talked people off the ledge. I'm not alone there. And I understand that concern. And I understand your concern, all of you. I think part of the concern was, okay, this is going to add to that frenzy. Well, first, to my knowledge, there is no frenzy, happily. And by people commenting over and over on Facebook that there is a frenzy, I'm concerned it'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy at some point.
Yeah.
And there could be a frenzy. I'll tell you one more thing, comma. one more thing, and that is that what I have noted, again, in my city for sure, because I know what goes on in my city, and you could tell me if the same thing is true in Philadelphia, but what has happened is that we're actually seeing more adoptions and far more fosters. That's amazing. That's wonderful news. And hopefully many of those fosters will be failed fosters.
Yeah, right. They put. One of the things, and there's some great online resources that I'll link below this for dogs and cats to get that, what you write about, kitten kindergarten and puppy kindergarten. Now, if you can't take your new pet that you're fostering or adopting out right now, that there's online resources to be able to get that virtually in your own home. So we're all adapting as fast as we can.
And one of the sources I'd like to mention, because I mentioned him, is and I'm afraid to do it because I'm afraid I'm going to lose you if I do it. Is put the link. Put the link. Thank you. Put the link to Worms and Germs, and they are like on top of it. The AVMA hasn't written about it yet, but they will, and I've talked to them. They're waiting for more information to come in, which is the right thing to do. And some would say I jumped the gun, but with all of those stories out there that concerned me, that I saw, that I knew weren't true, I wanted to put something out there that I felt was factual. And my intent was to do the opposite of how apparently some people took it. And I sincerely feel horrible about it. What's also interesting to me, and maybe you can explain this, or maybe someone watching can comment on it. So I posted about the Dalmatian. Dalmatian wasn't a Dalmatian. It was a Pomeranian.
Oh, right, a Pomeranian and a German Shepherd.
Right, a 17-year-old Pomeranian that had a weak positive. Maybe the dog had spots. I don't know. I don't think it was a Dalmatian. So it was a very old Pom that had a weak positive that ultimately died. And I even said the dog died. I didn't imply the dog died of COVID, and we don't think the dog did. In fact, the information suggests that this dog, like many 17-year-old very small dogs, had heart disease. And on top of everything, was secluded from its family in isolation for 10 days or 2 weeks, whatever it was, which couldn't have helped. But in any which case, I wrote about it.
And it It was the
I
only
didn't get any of these. I didn't get any of these negative comments. And when I wrote about the German Shepherd dog, so maybe people feel more passionately on either end of the spectrum about cats.
I think that they may, and also I think that there's just some general fatigue. I mean, we've been now in isolation about 2 weeks. We know that the situation for human beings is getting worse, and I think everyone is scared and tired and trying to adapt to this new way of life. And one of the things I want to say about the veterinary science that's emerging right now, so there's something like 300,000 plus people globally that have tested positive for the virus. And we have no idea in human beings how many people have actually been exposed or gotten the virus, because we are not able to test in the volume that we would like to. And we know that thousands of people have died. But we now have 2 dogs and 1 cat out of all of that exposure that we have teeny little bits of data on. And this is the point that frustrated Roberta. It frustrates us too, but you can't make sweeping judgments about how this new virus that no one has ever seen before is going to play itself out in dogs and cats. And I think we straddle this very awkward position where veterinarians are responsible for public health.
Yes.
So we want to inform you if there is something that you should be concerned about to take care of you. And we are doing this because we love dogs and cats and animals more than anything. And we want to make sure they're safe too. And then I have a dear friend who is in public health. She's actually the dean of public health at one of the medical schools in my town. And she has taught me a lot through this process about managing human anxiety and behavior. And so, just like you said, the very last thing any of us wants to do is to have people abandon their beloved dog and cat. But we also, in an appropriate way, want to bring you information as we get it. For me, getting the information about those dogs, I have a dog. So I'm really, to be perfectly careful in a risk-free world, which I love a risk-free world, he's staying in my backyard for the most part. And so he's not going to be exposed to other dogs. And my family's in lockdown, so we have minimal exposure to the virus. And I have a cat, Phoebe, and Phoebe is indoor only. So the only way, given all the variables, it's basically impossible for someone, be they human or animal, in my house to be exposed. And I'm like crazy with the bleach. I don't go to the grocery store, but I'm reading the science day and night. And I have an Ivy League education in science. And imagine if you are as worried as I am and don't know what all the words mean. It's really, really hard. And I think that what you did, I know you, Steve, I've known you for a long time now. What you're trying to do is bring the very best information possible in the way that people can absorb and understand to keep everybody safe and well, both animal and human. And I believe that about you 100%. And I'm sad, really, in this time when everybody's scared and nervous, that was misunderstood and taken as anything other than that. Because I read your piece and I didn't, it was scientific and factual and not inflammatory. And no one is suggesting that you abandon your pets. Let's say it again, there's no data right now that suggests that you are at risk from your pets. So put that to rest.
And one of the things that I say a lot, and I'm almost surprised you said it, is that, there are hundreds of thousands of people, more likely, that have been positive around the world, including animal-loving countries like Italy and Germany and the UK and Scotland and America and Canada, among many others. So thousands and thousands and thousands of dogs and cats have been exposed. And so far, no veterinarian in any of those countries has said, I have a COVID-19 positive here. Now, I say that, and I use that as a defense, and people like you who are scientists say, that's anecdotal, you're crazy. So we have so much evidence, but some of what we're relying on is anecdote.
Well, that's right.
That's all we can.
Between different continents, between different countries, and we're learning as fast as we can. Now, to get great data, we would love to be able to do, like I said, double-blind studies in a laboratory and get real data that we understand all the variables, but that's just not how this is unfolding. And Dr. Marks has chimed in to ask a great question.
So what if I can, what really is nice are all the private messages and all the rest that I've gotten from veterinarians who have said, I don't understand why they're yelling at you. What you're saying is right. And one of the people that I know who is as smart as you, please don't be offended, is Dr. Natalie Marks. And she brings up a very good point with this question. So I'll let you address it.
So you can read below, but Dr. Marks is asking us to explain the difference between infected and infectious. And this is where Roberta's going to get mad at me again, because it is like long and drawn out and boring. But it's important. But it's important. So infected means that and there's so many different tests that test different it's minutia in the big world, but is the virus live in you? Do you just have virus from somebody else, but it's not replicating in you? There's a lot of different variables here that we are trying to wrap our heads around quickly. But what the evidence points to at this time is that the cat and the dogs had virus in them, but they were not shedding virus into the community. Now, you mentioned something, because this cat information I read at 5 o'clock this morning. This is what I'm talking about, at the speed of this timeline.
That's the other thing. Yeah, it's changing.
Able to get information that I'm not as current as I want to be discussing this intelligently. But did you say that the cat was shedding virus in the feces?
The virus was found in the feces, yes. But what I also said is I don't know how they knew that. Was the feces contaminated with something else? Conceivably another cat going in there too. Well, we just don't know so much. And
we know that cats get a variety of different coronaviruses. How specific was this test to COVID-19 versus other coronaviruses? This is the boring minutia of science, which is why we try to go slow and methodical through it so that we can make sure that we have accurate information. And at the same time, we want people to be aware of what's going on. And it's a tricky dance to be able to straddle that line, particularly when everyone is fatigued and exhausted and upset.
And Dr. Marks, if you want to add to this, unfortunately, you'd have to type it out. But if you want to add to it, you're welcome to do it. And what I'd like to hear from you, even though I tried to make a point of it in the story, maybe I didn't do a very good job of it. So what I want to hear from both of you, since we happen to have Dr. Marks here, is there any reason for the average American, or wherever people are watching, to give up their dog or cat?
100% no. 100% no. The thing I want people to understand also, like I said in the beginning, it is a novel virus, so we're learning as fast as we can. So what we can say is, with the available evidence right now, there is no reason to give up your dog or cat. The other thing that we know in science is that viruses mutate. So in a month, a year, 5 years, that information could be different. And that's hard for people who aren't trained in science to understand too, because on March, whatever today is, March 27th, you told me everything was fine, and now it's not fine. But the science changes as we go. Our understanding of the science changes as we go, and the science itself can change as we go. But with the available information right now, there is absolutely no reason to think you are going to get sick from your dog or cat.
And what did Dr. Marks say?
She says absolutely no.
Exactly.
So we're in agreement. And also, I just talked about this earlier, you can go on the World Health Organization website, WHO. You can go on the AVMA website.
Yes.
And you can also go on the NIH websites to get.
The World Small Veterinary Association is doing a great job of covering this. And in fact, I just talked to, I don't want to throw names out there because it's not fair to those people, but I talked to the chair of their One Health committee, today. So, I mean, I really feel badly that people took it the wrong way, and I'm somewhat confused because compared to some other posts, I thought it was more responsible. In addition to that, I said in that post, maybe not the NIH, but the other organizations we just said, they were all mentioned in there. Mary Ann has a question here. So basically, infectious means you have and are actively shedding the virus and can be contagious, where infected means that you're just carrying the virus. I know she knows the answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you. Yes. And even those things, even in human beings, we are still trying to understand those things because this is happening so fast, and the rate at which we can collect and verify all the information. How long is a human being from the time they're exposed till they get sick? We're still figuring that out. From the time that they get sick to when they're either going to get better or not. What does that look like for a human being? And we have hundreds of thousands of cases that how long is a human being shedding the virus? The whole scientific community is trying to get to the bottom of this information as fast as we can. So out of an abundance of caution, to make sure that while we are collecting this information and trying to put this all together as fast as we can use some basic judgment to just keep everybody safe. It's not meant to scare you. It's just meant to keep everybody safe while we're learning all the particulars.
And it's not coming from me or you.
No.
What Dr. Marks just wrote, which is what you're alluding to, comes from a variety of different organizations. Yes. With incredible experts, which is just wash your hands. And I have something to ask you about that in a moment, but I will say, and again, it's the truth. I just want to talk about the truth. The AVMA, from almost the very beginning of this, based on the Centers for Disease Control, has said, out of an abundance of caution from what we know about coronaviruses, some of which you just explained here, it would be prudent if there's a positive in your home, and you know that, we always don't, but if you know that, to, if possible, have someone else care for that dog. And I'll even add to it, if you have a friend or a neighbor, and the dog's having a good time having a party with the friend or neighbor, then maybe they wipe off the leash after you hand off the dog and they wipe off the collar, and that dog actually goes to someone else and may take some pressure off of you. The scientific community is watching cats closely with caution because of their association with the SARS outbreak, which I think I mentioned at the very beginning.
I think that, like, to just take it all the way back, if you're not familiar with all this stuff and viruses and all the boring details, there's a whole field of science called zoonosis. And what that means is we know that there's lots and lots and lots of diseases that are transmitted between people and animals. This is not new. But because the coronavirus is new, we're trying to understand those transmissions. Now, I can repost that article that you and I wrote earlier this week.
Sure.
About the family of coronaviruses. So viruses are categorized based on maybe who they infect, the shape. There's a lot of different criteria that we try to put them in a little category to guess how they might behave based on similar patterns. And the coronavirus, if you scroll down in my feed, you'll see it's got this crown-like appearance, and that tells us it's probably going to do some things similar to the other coronaviruses. SARS is one of the other coronaviruses, and we saw that that was a zoonotic disease between animals and people, and specifically cats. And so we're keeping an extra eye on it, because we don't want to miss something and have anybody get sick. We're trying to be protective, not inflammatory. And sometimes when we're all exhausted and upset that a little piece of information can set us off, and that was not the intention.
Exactly. And Dr. Marks actually and I sort of had a conversation sort of about this, where we now are at different switching places, so to speak. But it's heartbreaking to me because I want to help, that's, so I have several texts. You could reach us any number of ways. And then someone brought up Ellen Park, brought up a great point that I want to get to. Dr. Drew Wagner, a feline veterinarian of great renown. I don't know whether you're watching this, Dr. Wagner, or you're just, I don't know, but he's not a Facebook fan. But he writes, Belgium's National Council for Animal Protection said there's no known threat from pets. Animals are not vectors. And I have that in my story as well, but I'm happy to make another point of it. The American Veterinary Medical Association reminds me that they had information up that I missed apparently this morning on this very thing. And I'm try to be consistent for a lot of reasons with what they do, because I think there's so much misinformation in general about everything on the internet. So if we can find one credible source, and if I follow that source, my hope is other sources follow that source. And the AVMA has been on top of this. Ellen Park,
it's reasonable to point out that we are trying to help. I mean, you and I could both be in front of our televisions with a big bowl of popcorn right now. We are, and that's what our family is, right? We're trying to help. And when you put yourself out there to be a leader and try to help, just by the very nature of the fact that you did something, you're a target. And it's a pain, but it's the truth. If you spent your day watching Three Stooges reruns, we would not be having this conversation right now. But you spent your day trying to gather great information, check them with the appropriate scientists, and put out good information for people. And by no means did you try to upset people or make them jump to a conclusion that it's not safe to have a cat right now. We are trying to keep people safe and animals safe all day, every day. And so just to reiterate one more time, there is no reason for you to abandon a dog or cat right now. And if you, like so many people, are spending more time at home and think, I've been wanting to get a cat, now is a great time to get a cat. And I also want to mention, it's a great time to make a donation to the shelter if that is something that you can do, because they're on a short budget all the time, and they're having to cancel all of their fundraising events right now. And so if you really love dogs and cats, instead of spending your time writing nasty emails to Steve, reach into your pocket, and if it's a quarter or $1 or $100, send that to your local shelter, and that's how you're going to help animals right now.
I want to answer what, yes, to everything you said. I want to answer what Ellen says. So, and I want to ask you about this too. I think a lot of what veterinarians, and I'm not one, so you are, and again, the veterinarians aside from Dr. Marks also, but whatever other veterinarians, we have at least one technician here, want to chime in on this, that's great. I think that a lot of what the AVMA, the CDC, the World Small Animal Veterinary Association, and others are asking clients, pet owners, to do is what you were taught in veterinary school. And we got away from that, because I've been to enough vet school speaking, so I've heard this, tell your clients and you yourself, wash your hands between petting different pets. Yes, the dog can lick you on the face, maybe not in the mouth. Those sorts of things are probably something we should always be paying attention to. And I'm concerned about the way I say it, because then people think, oh my God, I'm going to get this. No, it's something we always, and someone wrote me today that leptospirosis is probably more of a concern. Yes, if you don't vaccinate the dog, maybe that is more of a concern. So that's not how lepto is passed from dog to person, by kissing, I don't think. But the point is the same, and this is something that veterinarians have been taught, and technicians have been taught all along, I think. Do you agree?
Well, for sure. I mean, certainly as a practicing veterinarian, I will wash my hands between every appointment. I don't touch dog to dog, cat to cat, or cat to human. This world of bacteria and viruses, in other times in our life, we're like, and we get a little lackadaisical. I mean, I've had clients come into the veterinary hospital with ice cream cones that they're sharing back and forth with their dog. I do not recommend that. I don't kiss my dog on the mouth. I do have to tell you, I let his little nose come really close because I love him, but I do not kiss my dog on the mouth. I don't sleep with my dog. I love him more than anything, and my cat. But there's just diseases that can go back and forth. But that's not just dogs and cats. It's also pet turtles and primates. Like, because this time
we don't have pet primates.
We're delving into this world of fear, and that's not what we want to do. And this is a time we just all need to take it down a notch, and try to get the facts and practice safe day-to-day habits, and these new safe day-to-day habits under these extraordinary circumstances, and try to find ways to not be afraid, and to I'm doing it within my four walls, but live my life the best I can. And again, kindness before attack, please.
And that's so I know you fairly well, and I want to talk about that. We have so many people out there, and it's a slight change of subject. And really, if you have questions about the blog post in particular, so it's interesting but not surprising to me that a lot of the people screaming at me aren't here, because I wanted to answer them directly. And maybe people didn't know that we were doing this. I tried to post it everywhere I could. But right now, as we speak, there are heroes putting their lives on the line. They include veterinarians and technicians, because they're the ones going to the car to see the client who may or may not be infected or whatever, and now they're getting the pet. Of course, the doctors, the nurses, other human medical health professionals, the person at the grocery store, the person at the drugstore, the pharmacist, the person delivering in the truck the FedEx packages to us and to the pharmacy. I mean, I can go on, of course, you could too, with a long, long list of people. And to attack one another, I'm not sure how that's beneficial. And I believe that people that were attacking me didn't mean to attack me. They just want to protect companion animals, and I do too. And this is your life's work, but and has become for many years my life's work. But they didn't see, and that's fine. But I think also it's a very emotional and a very scary time. And if we could find ways to, and I'll let you talk about this because I know you well enough to know, it's not that we talked about this hours, but I just know you, that our health, our mental health is on the line here. It's not only our physical health, but we have sometimes some control of that. At least we can try to, I've been walking down the street and I'm keeping 6 foot apart from the next person, but maybe more than before, smiling and saying hello. There's a runner's etiquette. I'm the worst runner you'd ever want to see, but I've been out running, and now there's this new etiquette that the runners really, one will go out on the street, the other will go around a fire hydrant or something, and we smile at each other where before people didn't pay attention. And I'll let you pick it up from there.
Well, I mean, I've actually been very emotional today, which I try not to be. It's just an extraordinary time, and I was up most of, or all of last night, reading about all of the healthcare professionals and what they're going through. It really is extraordinary. And when you're on the caretaker side, when you're the doctor and you don't have the equipment that you need to do the job that you need to do, and you know that you could do better if you had what you needed, and that you're not able to practice medicine to your standards because you don't have the protective equipment, and it's always the doctor's job to protect the staff. That the buck stops with the doctor always, and the stress that those doctors are under is unfathomable, and veterinarians too. And the stories that I'm reading all day, every day, about veterinarians that are collecting their own protective equipment and donating it to hospitals. So they're putting themselves and their staff at risk. This is a time when the generosity of the medical profession is really something we all should take a step back. And I am in awe of them. And like you said, Steve, everybody else too, the person who delivers my groceries, and the janitors that are cleaning up the rooms, and on and on and on.
Trash
And Jamie Lynn posted, we're going to get back to the science part, but Jamie Lynn asked a question: has anyone done a necropsy on a dog or cat? It's my understanding that the cat is still alive. We
don't know.
So we're having a hard time getting information. The dog, the German Shepherd in Hong Kong, is still alive.
Yes.
And the Pomeranian who died, the owner did not allow a necropsy, and the government did not insist on it. So you are right. How are we getting reliable data?
I'll tell you, to Jamie's point, first of all, I read in what I think is a reliable source that the dog, which for a 17-year-old, you tell me, 17-year-old Pomeranian, underlying heart disease would not be surprising. And this dog did have that. And it was also separated from its family for a time, being in isolation. So that all played a role probably in the dog's death. I don't really know. I'm just surmising. So I don't know, because the family refused a necropsy. IDEX, that's a diagnostic lab. I'm frozen, aren't I? Can you still hear me?
You're frozen, but we can hear you. I hate to disturb you because I don't know that you'll come back. Do you want to log out and come back in?
Let me just answer this question, and then because people really don't need to see me, I'm not that exciting. IDEX, the diagnostic lab, tested well over 1,000 dogs and cats. Thousands, they said, I believe, and not a single positive, not a single one. As I noted anecdotally, and I'll say it again, there's not been a single positive from a veterinarian who has said, this is an odd respiratory disease, let's test this dog, or the signs seem odd. Not a single positive based on that too.
We're not even testing human beings.
Well, that's another,
that should be so we don't have protocols developed. We are not in a position to be getting great information. That's what I tried to say at the beginning, is we are doing this on the fly the best we can, and that's what a novel virus means. So the fact that it's like everyone's juggling this information, that's what this is. That's why it's so scary. That's why it's overwhelming. That's why we're just making the best decisions that we can as fast as we can. We don't know.
Let me log out, and you could talk about quality of life issues for veterinarians and how they're doing in your profession, and I'll come back in.
I don't even know how to answer that. I'm going to log you out. And I don't speak for all veterinarians by any means, but we're just a group of people who got into this job to be helpers and want to do everything that we can to help. And it's an extremely sad and stressful time to be a veterinarian, changing your practice super fast to try to keep your staff safe, the pet parents safe, to try to figure out new protocols of even how clients move through your hospital. It's just impossibly hard. And then you add on top of it the stress that everyone in America is feeling right now of uncertainty and money. And when when your pet is sick and you don't have money, it's awful, and it's awful for the veterinary staff too. So it's an excruciating time. And the circles back around to what we had talked about in the beginning is communication. So if something for your veterinary, if you had a vet visit or something isn't going right, talk to them first with an open heart before attacking, because everyone is trying as best they can, and everyone's fuse is short, and we all have feelings. So I think it is a real moment in time for some kindness.
If anyone has some other questions or comments, we're happy to answer them, but we also don't want to keep you here all night. Some people were not given a reminder apparently, or had trouble getting on. So what I am going to do is post this video when it's available on my Facebook fan page and also on my Facebook personal page, and folks are free to watch it. So Marianne Minnick is a veterinary technician in Chicago. And the burbs, and you can see what she says here about her dealing with the crisis and how difficult it is, but the good things that are happening as well.
It's so hard.
And she's right.
You know, the people that you see when you go to your veterinary hospital are the staff that are there to serve you, but they're also human beings that are scared for their health. What are they bringing home to their families? Kids are out of school, spouses, the stress that everyone's under right now is extraordinary. And I really do think, and I'm going to be talking about it, beating this drum and writing about it, the world's going to be reorganized in a new way on the other side of this. We will get through it. And I hope that we get through it smarter and kinder and reorganize our values. And I hope to be a leader for that, for all animal lovers out there, that it's kindness first. And we're not always going to agree, and we're going to misunderstand each other and all that stuff. But instead of starting on the attack or on the defensive, let's start with kindness. And it would change a lot of stuff. It would change a lot of stuff.
And in fact, what Marianne mentions here, I think that there are some pluses. One, maybe we're taking more walks with our dogs, so some of those overweight and obese dogs can lose a few pounds. We're spending more time with our companion animals, and actually that concerns me, because I think that it's conceivable when we all go back to work, dogs and cats, and maybe you and I can talk about this in a separate video, but God, I'm getting myself into trouble with dogs and cats. Oh, you like that. But dogs and cats that they love routine. And dogs even more pronounced than cats. I'm worried about separation distress once we all go back to work.
No, I think we should invite board certified veterinary behaviorist Dr. Amy Pike.
Sure.
And the three of us can have a great talk about it, because I think that there's some things, as we get towards the end of this self-isolation period, I think there's some suggestions that she would have for how we can start modifying our behavior and our expectations to set our dogs up to have an easier time with the transition.
I think you're right. And the other thing is, you and I are talking, as I give a plug to what we're, I think, doing on Monday, and that is talking with someone from the Human Animal Bond Association about the human animal bond and how that really, now we're seeing it without realizing it very often. So those folks that were all upset at me probably were petting their cat as they were typing away because they were so upset. And it's just, and also playing with your cat or dog is as much a stress reliever as it is for them as it is for us, and vice versa. And we're doing more of that. And it helps relieve our stress. Just, we know, I'm not going to go through all the data now, but that we know in so many different ways, just living with a companion animal, which 66% of America now does, is actually helpful for us. And I think that's the best drug we can take to ease our anxiety during this time. And it's interesting, maybe that's also psychologically one reason, aside from people wanting to do good, why adoptions are up as well. I don't know.
I think so. I really think that it's going to be a great time to love our pets and love each other. And I'm going to post also the the Mr. Rogers. When things are stressful, look for the helpers.
Yeah, yeah. I wrote that.
I know that, I mean, you got your feelings hurt today.
Well,
And I think that when you get out of bed every day to try to do the right thing and someone misunderstands your efforts, it's hurtful. And when I think about the helpers in this profession, I think about you. So I hope that you hear the positives as much as you allow yourself to be wounded by the negatives.
Well, thank you. And I've gotten so many nice comments from friends, etc. Before we go, I want you to answer Ellen Park, because I think it's a great question.
Yeah, so Ellen wrote, I'm afraid to take my dog to the vet, not afraid of her getting COVID-19 there. Wait, she moved around there.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'll get it. You know, Ellen, I think that you should call your vet if yours have a scheduled something that, you know, you got your reminder in the mail, or something like that. Have a conversation with your vet, because some things you really shouldn't put off and other things can wait. And it can be complicated based on your dog's health history and what those things are. And the best person to answer that is your vet, and they want to answer that question for you. So I think right now, if you can avoid having to go to the vet, I would. But you know, it's interesting, Steve, because I've been thinking a lot about that too. And when this is over, how do we put people back in those healthy habits of going to the vet? It's just endlessly complicated right now.
Well, and I'm concerned, you know, I mean, maybe you and I differ in opinion here, and some of it depends on geography too, right? Because in Montana, things are not quite the same as they are in the heart of New York City, of course. So I think, though, that I am concerned that if enough time goes by and our dogs don't have dog flu vaccines, or our dogs don't have leptospirosis, which is a vaccine if there's lepto in your area, and it's in a lot of areas, or for protection for Lyme disease. I mean, some of these things, or at least one of those things, lepto, is something that can be transmitted potentially to us. Besides, it can make our dogs really sick. Lyme can make our dogs really sick. Dog flu can make our dogs really sick. So I don't want people, this is just my opinion, and again, it may greatly vary on geography and on that individual practice and what they're able to do. But I don't want dogs to miss some of those things. If it's a young puppy, certainly not a rabies vaccine. So,
but Steve, I think that for the average pet owner, when we go to the vet with our dog or cat, I don't know what they're doing, really. I mean, not that I don't care. I'm trusting them to make the decision and tell me which is the important thing and which isn't. So if all I'm getting is the postcard that says you're due for your blah, 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 I don't know if that is important or not important. Like how it's what we in science always refer to as a risk-benefit analysis. So can it wait or can it not wait? And this is a great moment in time to reestablish communication, because if you have a vet that you think of calling and you want to die more than you want to call them, there is a vet out there that you would like to communicate with better. Or maybe it's not the vet, maybe it's you, and you just don't like to talk to people, but we have to find a way to start communicating.
Well, so the FDA has said we can do more telemedicine in veterinary medicine. They lifted some of the regulations, and it's also state by state, and this is not an area I'm expert on, and some states have said, okay, now we can allow you to go to the AVMA. Actually, we've mentioned them several times. They have a ton of information up on their website. Contact your state if you're a veterinary professional. Contact your state board or your state state association, because they will know the answer. But we are now going to see, it was happening anyway, but now we are going to see all at once a lot more telemedicine and telehealth as well. Jenny, go ahead.
Call your veterinarian, because I'm sitting here in my house in Philadelphia. If you're in Las Vegas or Vermont or Florida, your vet is the one to tell you how they're seeing things based on what's happening with the disease in their neighborhood, with their staff, with their protocols. Again, it's communication. I hope that you have a vet that you want to talk to that will answer your question about whether you should come in or not come in. Your vet is the one.
I agree. And law, in fact, suggests that. I don't think that's changed. So I just want to quickly say Jenny Schluter is here. Now, you may see her name, but there's no way living in Philadelphia you can know her. She is a shelter hero in Chicago. And, you know, I did, and you did a shout out to so many professionals. Well, the shelter professionals.
Amazing.
Yeah. And people are still out there doing TNR, trap, neuter, release for feral or community cats. And Jenny is one of those heroes. So thank you, Jenny.
Maybe Jenny, if you and Jenny are close, I would actually like to try to come up with some problem solving for shelter fundraising during this crisis, because the work that shelters do, I mean, almost everybody gets their pet from a shelter, but we forget about them so easily. And the work that they are doing in providing veterinary care and animal control and getting that pet in the right condition to go be your forever pet is the most amazing and often thankless work. And those people are working on a shoestring budget out of the kindness of their heart all the time. And like I said before, their fundraising efforts just got obliterated. And I would really like to find some positive ways to raise money for shelters during this time.
I could, you and I will talk about that privately. Jenny's with the municipal shelter here, so it makes it a little more challenging to do that because it's through the city. But maybe. I'll talk to you maybe Monday night about the human-animal bond.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. And again, my apologies of the intent, and maybe I succeeded here. I don't know. But my intent wasn't to scare people. My intent wasn't to anger people. I just tried to tell it sort of like it is. In fact, without getting national inquiry, which some of the blogs did do. They were sensationalizing. And I thank you for everyone who joined us tonight. You know, so I've been doing on my personal page, Liz, and it's only on my personal page, which has no room on it because of Facebook limits, you know. Every night I've been doing a little slice of comedy because I think we need it. Funny you mentioned the Three Stooges because I did that last night, or maybe you saw it.
I saw it.
Yeah. And then the night before, I don't know, might have been Groucho Marx or whatever it was. Not political humor, just funny, pie in the face, almost literally at times. But tonight I'm posting What the World Needs Now, because you made me think of it, and we do. And thank you for what you're doing every night to help inform people in different ways. Thank you for jumping on with me. I just called you as a friend last minute, and I said, help, and you were there for me.
Well, and thank you for what you do. And I know you got bounced around a little bit today, but I thought it was a great piece, and I don't want you to be intimidated about being there for us with all that great information that you provide. You know, there's going to be people who are always upset about something, and I think that you're wonderful to apologize for anyone who misunderstood tonight. But I think the information was good, and don't stop doing what you're doing. And thanks for being an advocate for dogs and cats everywhere.
Thank you. And we'll all Monday night it'll be at 7:00 Central.
Yes, 7 Central.
Okay, and 8:00 Eastern. Thank you, guys. Have a good night, everyone, and be safe.
Be safe. Good night.